from the need to have a larger discussion around the original issue, which in fact was the boys participating in such a social media group and doing what they did. So that is really where we are coming from. Now, we of course we are aware that the trigger has been this particular incident, which came to our knowledge and became public in the first week of May. But I am aware, and I'm sure many of us may be aware that such groups have existed in the past. To deny it would be, um, unfortunately, to live in a fool's paradise, because we know this is the reality of the day. The extent of the threats and the level of sexual violence which was discussed on the group is something at least I have not seen. Some other participants may have seen, but such groups have existed, and which is why it becomes all the more important, regardless of this recent incident, to talk about such issues and to talk to parents, to talk to teachers, and to talk to students alike, especially those who are below the age of 18, so that this discussion can be had at a younger age. And this sensitization and this awareness is something that students should be exposed to at an early age. And this, we all believe, on this panel will help in in us working towards a more kind, a more empathetic, a more egalitarian world and society around us. Now, with that perspective, I would like to quickly come to this, to introduce the speakers. We have 4 speakers on the panel today, which includes me. I am a corporate lawyer based in Mumbai. So, as some of you who may be aware of what a corporate lawyer does, this is not really my domain expertise. However, this is a topic that is very close to my heart, and I have been discussing it in detail with the other panelists and with Arpit, and all of us feel very strongly about it. The second speaker is Ayushi Gupta, who is a lawyer as well, and who will be handling certain aspects of today's discussion, which I'll be coming to. The third speaker is Shruti Murani, who is an educationist and has experience in dealing with such issues in the past. And the fourth speaker is Suhasini Gaur, who is a counselor and a psychologist. She works closely with Ma Anandmai Memorial School, and she has also been associated with Teach for India. Now, with that introduction, I'll just briefly describe the structure of today's discussion. Today's discussion will primarily, comprise 5 headers. We are the first, of course, was the introduction. The second header is going to deal with some social and psychological perspectives of this issue, where we are going to talk about why this issue really arises, what has been the conditioning for the past few years or decades, which has led to such issues cropping up now, what has led to such issues being experienced, there being different perspectives on this issue in society. So we are going to try and give our psychological perspective along with our social views on this, and then we will move on to providing you a very brief legal background to the implications which could be there of such incidents. And while the first topic, which is the social and psychological perspectives, will primarily be dealt with by Suhasini and Shruti, Ayushi and I will be happy to take you guys through some of the legal implications and possibly some other social implications, which may not be strictly legal, but which are very relevant given how Indian society is largely structured. And then we will then take you through some of the possible solutions and redressal mechanisms that we could envisage, given how society in India functions. And we had certain measures that we wanted to suggest, especially because we have teachers and parents who have very kindly joined this session. and it will be important for them to be aware of these steps which can be taken at a very early stage, so that as the saying goes, we can nip this in the bud and strike at the very root of this problem, so that the next few generations are definitely more sensitized and much more aware of what is okay and what is not. And this you will hear all the panelists chipping in. Of course, the focus will be on Suhasini and Smriti, who have domain expertise in this field, but Ayushi and I will also be chipping in with some of our thoughts. And once this is done, we will throw the floor open to the participants to share their questions or maybe their own perspectives, some examples from their side, and we'll be happy to share our thoughts and provide any answers that are available with us. So with that, if I can request Suhasini to maybe take the lead on sharing some social and psychological perspectives on today's webinar on unlocking the locker room.
Thank you so much, Kaustav. So first of all, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. And to begin with, talking about these sociological and psychological perspectives, I think it's very important for us to know that these things have been happening for a substantial period of time now, and we as a society are a hibernating society, right? So we are fortunate enough that these sort of incidents come up in the society, not like that just happens. Smriti, am I audible? Okay, thank you. So this sort of issue came up front through social media. We're fortunate enough to be discussing about these issues online. So the thing is that we as a hibernating society once in a while come together, talk intellectually, have conversations about it, and after a while we just lump back on how we condition the society and how we are raising our children. Let me just switch off the fan if my voice is disturbing. Just give me 2 seconds. Is it fine now? Yeah, so as I was talking, we as a society just hibernate after these things happen, and we restore to our conventional ways of nurturing our kids or teaching them what conditioning is. And as we all know, we are a patriarchal society, and being in patriarchy does not mean that it's just a system for boys, but it is so much ingrained in every individual of our society, irrespective of their genders, even females, even males, that it is something inseparable now. Okay, so when a child is very young, from that age onwards, he has been taught that boys are completely separate group of people and girls are completely separate group of people, and these kids grow up in a way that they believe that you know we're not supposed to have interactions, which is still a stigma and taboo in the society. We're not supposed to sit together, hold hands together, because we are completely different from other gender. And when these young kids grow up into adolescents and teenagers, uh, I believe that there's this eh, uh, internal sort of fascination to know more about the other gender, to involve among the peer groups and everything, and that results, since our society does not allow it and our society does not give appropriate platform for these kids to come up with these sort of emotions. They don't have an idea to talk about it, properly discuss their issues and emotions with them. They end up resorting to their own private groups, be it social media, be it watching porn, be it their own groups where they're very comfortable talking about it. Now it has to be taken care of that how are they getting these emotions vented out? How are they channelizing their emotions and feelings in this way? Okay, are they being reinforced incorrectly? Are they being corrected on time? Are they being, remorsed for it? Are they being punished for it? This has to be taken care of, how these sort of emotions and how these sort of feelings are being reinforced in these young children, be it girls, be it boys. And since there's no platform for these people, for these children to go and talk about it, there's nothing in school that they can go to, there's no one at their home that they can go to and talk about it. And since our society has so much of sort of what do I say, so sort of, they just hype it so much that both the genders are mingling up, and they're sitting together and they're talking. They've been seen in private. They just hype it so much that they hesitate in talking about it to anybody, right? So yeah, so this is something that is very important, that if these children from a very young age are being sensitized enough that not to look at the other individual as somebody else, as some other gender, but not just his body, but to look them beyond just the physical characteristics of that person, to look into their souls, not just, I mean, like souls, but to look into something that is beyond their physical characteristics, so that they get more empathetic. They can, be more sensitive. They can understand the concepts of masculinity and femininity, and they can be more open and accepting towards the other gender. And also, it's very important, coming to the point where I was talking about schools and education system, it's important that we teach and we neutralize gender neutrality in such a way that it's not a hoax for people. Yeah. So so like, as far as I remember, when I was a child, sex education ke naam pe there used to be this one class, and in which all the girls were taken to a separate room and we were taught about periods, right? And we were taught about how to use a pad. And I couldn't even, I know why, but 8th class की लड़कियों को और 9th class की लड़कियों को good touch bad touch सिखाया जाता था, which probably by that age they would have experienced by themselves. So this is the sex education that we talk about in school. We, instead of talking about what is the right way to present yourself, the right way to share your opinions, what is the right way to embrace your bodies, how not to shy about who you are. Instead of these things, instead of being accepting for who you are, we are talking about how you should refrain from getting into these situations which can be bad for you. So as coming back to the first point, I was talking about how we are a society of hibernation, and we once in a while we come together, talk intellectually about some things, and then we go sleep on it, these sort of things. So after this incidents happen, after these intellectual conversations happen, the result, the policing is always done on girls, right? So after this incident end, I'm pretty sure that we are going to restore back onto the things that please don't upload such pictures, because internet is not a safe space for you. Instead of policing the boys, instead of policing and making gender neutral statements of how could a human do something to other human, we are going to take in perspective the concept of gender. Also, the issue here lies that what goes into the psyche of a person, what is at the bottom of the psyche of this person, um, who talks these, who expresses his emotions and feelings and his interest in a specific way in such a lewd form, right? So जब वो बच्चा छोटा होगा, या जब while he must have been growing, or she must have been growing, what did he see around him, or what did she see around her, so that these things unconsciously got into their head, right? Be it media, be it parents, since we know we have a patriarchal society, and no matter what we try, we still face some of the issues where I would air quote these things that husbands allow their wives to work, and women have to handle their homes as well and go outside as well, work as well. And you know even if we go on to the point of I was recently going through an advertisement where Salman Khan comes to the rescue and fights for a girl's liberty. So superficially, it looks like that, you know, women are being empowered and equality, but then this is sort of toxic, masculinity that we're talking about. Why does a man has to be on the part where he's protecting the girl? You know, yeah, so it's like the toxic masculinity that is being promoted in media through television, or by conditioning the society by from a very tender age, from very younger age, telling this to girls and boys that they are different entities of the society and they're not supposed to mingle up and live together in harmony. I would request Smriti to please continue with this.
Yes, thank you so much, Suhasini. This was very, very insightful. And I would love to add a few more points, and I would love to expand on a few things that you already mentioned, using some stories, some interesting stories that I have come across in my tenure as an educationist, I would say. So, um, as you mentioned, that from a very early age, children are, one, they are taught differently, and two, they after they cross a certain age and when they start to become curious about the other gender, they don't know how to approach them. They don't know how to even be intimate with them, let's say. So there's actually a group of friends, and this is actually a story from a school from Chennai. So what happened there was that there was this one particular boy who was being over friendly with a bunch of girls. Now, keep in mind that this particular boy, he is only 11 or 12 years old, and he does not have any other intentions right now, apart from just being friends with these girls. However, the girls were feeling uncomfortable because he was going overboard, being over friendly, at times touching them inappropriately, or sort of putting his hand on their shoulders, which they weren't really comfortable with. Now, what these girls did was they very politely but firmly they brought this up, and they told the boy that, okay, this is why we are feeling uncomfortable, and if you want to be our friend, these are the things that you can do, and these things are as simple as you can offer us the food that you've got during the recess. You can help us with our studies. We can help you with your studies. We can discuss things as a group. We can high five. So putting your hand on my shoulder is probably not okay, but a high five is okay, right? So the idea is, uh, usually what happens is when children are very, very young, they might just want to, let's imagine a 2-year-old. So when this 2-year-old, 3-year-old goes to a preschool, he or she probably just wants to play with other children. But what will he or she do? They will shove them, they will push them, they will bite them, because they probably don't know how to say that I want to play with you, I want to be a part of this group, right? And something, again, this is a very, 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 very far-fetched analogy. But what happens is in the teenage years, when children surpass a certain age, and let's say that they want to be intimate with people, or at least be friends with people from the other gender, they have had no avenues where these two genders have been together in group settings. So they don't even know how to talk to each other. They don't know what is okay, what is not. Uh, Even if they want to express themselves or share intimate details or anything, share intimacy, they probably don't know how to do this. So what they do is they resort to media, they resort to the other sources that they have, and like the media, even the mainstream media, movies, etc. Like we are really good at doing this, and we are really good at showing like young people that yeah, if you want a girl's attention, it's okay to like run around her or like do random things which are borderline creepy, but are okay because mainstream media showcases all of these things. Now, taking a step back and coming to all of these, even gender stereotypes. Now, let's face it, we have so many people, boys and girls, doing things that are not expected for people of their gender to do, right? So, where does this stereotyping start, and how deep rooted is it? So, things like um, "मर्द को दर्द नहीं होगा." Really, boys don't cry, or boys will be boys. So, I at times wonder that who came up with these things. What happens is, if you have all of these notions at the back of your mind, you will always uh, not hold people accountable for their actions. So, on the other hand, women are traditionally expected to be warm, beautiful, flawless, and motherly. So we cannot even leave people like Jennifer Aniston out of this. If she's not a mother, what is wrong with her? Why does she not want to be a mother? And yes, this surpasses all boundaries across countries, geographies, continents, everything. It's very, very deep rooted. Um, One other aspect that I would like to highlight here is, as Suhasini already mentioned, that we police the girls more often than not. Uh, we police our girls as to what to do, how to sit, what to wear, what not to wear, and the list is endless. Now, do we talk about these things with our sons? Do we talk about these things with young children? Actually, both boys and girls. Why is the rule book so different for boys and girls? Uh, can we just make it extremely simple that okay, you are a human, you're not supposed to treat another human being in XYZ manner, right? Can't it be just as simple as that? So, for example, it's not okay for a girl to put pictures of a boy online and talk about it even in her group of girlfriends. It's not okay for a boy to do the same thing. It's not okay for even a girl to make a boy feel uncomfortable. It is not okay for a boy to make a girl uncomfortable. And let's say after they know that they are making them feel uncomfortable in any which way, they need to stop. I would like to highlight one aspect of how uh, we as a society at times let people get away with certain things. So, for example, let's say I come across something that my peer is doing, or my child is doing. So, do I let them get away with it, or do I have the courage and the necessary tools to stand up to them and to at least point out that this is not okay? uh, Imagine for yourself. So, for example, one of my friends, I realized later that one of my friends was joining his group of friends, and he did not stand up for me when that group of friends were talking, were shaming me and were calling me names. I I did not know what to say then, and I was really disappointed that my friend could not stand up for me when other people were talking really, really bad things about me. So there is where the entire thing boils down to. Let's say somebody is not doing something that is right. It can be, of course, like sexual harassment is like a completely different ball game. But let's say calling somebody something. It can be trying to get their attention in different ways which are not appropriate, touching them in different ways which are not appropriate or which they are not comfortable with, um, gossiping about intimate details. So, are we standing up to our friends, our families, when all of these things happen or not? So, yes, I would like to pause here and I would like to hand the baton to Kaustubh to take the discussion.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Suhasini, and thanks, Smriti. I want to share a couple of thoughts on this subject before we move on to discussing legal implications. I'd just like to share that I believe, and I'm sure many of us may share this view, that um, one of the reasons why such behavior goes unchecked at an early age is because but there are a lot of subjects, including this, which is considered to be, it's considered to be a taboo in terms of our normal middle class values. We don't want to talk about such things. Our parents don't want to talk to us about such things. At times, our teachers avoid discussing such things with us. This may be especially true for situations where boys have grown up alone in a family with no sisters, or boys have grown up in an all boys school. I believe there may still be scope for having such discussions more easily in a co-ed school as compared to a boys school, and that is something that we need to acknowledge. Of course, we'll be discussing solutions and redressal mechanisms and suggestions in a later segment of the discussion. But I think it's important to understand that when the kids are hitting their adolescence, it's important to start this discussion then itself. Because if we hide from it, if we allow it to go unchecked, then we are allowing, it's possible that we are giving space for this kind of, for lack of a better word, monstrosity to take an uglier form 5, 10, 15 years later. So it is the responsibility of everybody who has under his charge, as a parent or as a teacher or as a mentor or a guide in any way, to check and to call out such behavior early on, where we see evidence of it, whether it be on social media or we can see it happening before our eyes. We can see, excessive catcalling in class, or we see it happening between our kids and the kids of our neighbors. It's of course good to support your kid and to be there for your kid, but not for the wrong reasons, because counseling begins at home and counseling begins in classrooms. And if we start talking about it at an early age, it may be possible to reduce chances of kids turning out to be um, folks who can participate in something like this. And I think it's also important to appreciate that I think we need to instill in boys of a certain age, 14, 15, 16 years old and thereabouts, that something like this is not okay. You cannot simply be of the belief that, look, I am not committing sexual harassment, as in physical sexual harassment. So what is the issue with this? This is in jest. This is in good humor. And if young boys are not joking, what will they do? These kind of notions need to be dispelled, and they need to be dispelled with a mission. And everybody who forms part of our society, affecting those particularly those boys of that age, they all need to be invested. So with that, I'd like to conclude this segment of the session. We will of course be touching upon redressal mechanisms in a later leg, like I mentioned. I will request now Ayushi to throw some light on some broad legal implications that could be there for people and youngsters who participate in acts like having a social media profile which contains lewd material or obscene material, which targets their friends, their peers, ladies who are older, and especially girls who are below the age of 18 because they are considered to be minors. So I'll request Ayushi to throw some light on that, and then maybe I'll share some concluding thoughts on other implications, non-legal implications of being, participating in such acts, such as social implications.
Thank you, Kaustubh. Hi, everybody. So what I'll do is I'll run you all through the basic laws that we have in our country as to what protection you can get, as to what particular act has been termed as an offense. So I am hoping that everybody knows that rape being a grave offense. Everybody knows rape is forcible intercourse with any woman. Now, there are other offenses also that might not be as grave as rape, but it is considered to be an offense. Now, when I say grave, it does not mean that these offenses can be belittled. So I'll start with the basic offenses. First is that you cannot outrage the modesty of a woman. So if you do that violently, forcibly, it is punishable. If you make any remarks, if you say any words, if you show any obscene material to a woman, then that is outraging of a modesty. That is punishable. Then we speak of sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can be in any form, by words, by requesting for sexual favors, by making any sexual colored remarks on that person. That is punishable. Now, when we speak of stalking, as far as this case is concerned, so IPC here, these are the provisions of the Indian Penal Code that I'm talking about. So when we speak of IPC, it is applicable to children beyond the age of 18 years. It is applicable to adults. Here, as far as boys' locker room case is concerned, we are speaking of minors, we are speaking of children below the age of 18 years. So the purpose to run you through IPC is that is the basic code that defines all the offenses that we have in the country. Now, it may happen that as per a special circumstance, a special act might apply in supplement. So here, when we speak of juveniles, Juvenile Justice Act is the act that will apply in addition to the Indian Penal Code. I don't want to make it sound very technical. So coming on to other offenses, now stalking is an offense under IPC. You cannot monitor the activity of a woman over the internet. If you do that, it is punishable. You stalk the person, you check when the person is coming online, or you check what the person is posting on their profile, when is the woman posting such a thing, then it is an offense. Now, all these offenses have been defined with respect to a woman. So when we speak of gender neutrality here, for children below the age of 18 years, we have POCSO Act, that is prevention of sexual harassment against children, where children below the age of 18 years are protected from any kind of sexual harassment, any kind of child pornography, and all these offenses that might take place against a child. So here, when we speak of the boys locker room case, we additionally need to see the IT Act, that is the Information Technology Act, which speaks of morphing pictures, spreading obscene images, sharing profile pictures of a female and commenting about all those things. So briefly running through the IT Act, I would say that firstly, what is punishable is that you cannot violate privacy of any person. You cannot put a picture, you cannot circulate a video of any person engaging in any private act. Then what is punishable is transmitting and publishing of any obscene material with respect to any person, with respect to any private act they may be engaging in. And also what is punishable is that if you are depicting children, that is separately punishable under the IT Act. It provides separate protection to children that you cannot browse through child pornography, you cannot download any material, you cannot share any material. With respect to children, when we are seeing, even browsing and downloading is punishable. So now coming on to the fact that you are sharing a person's profile picture from their account. Now, law does not specifically say anywhere that it is punishable, but what may happen is that you might have entered into a user agreement with whatever social interface you are using. And in those terms and conditions of that interface, it might have been defined that what is restricted. Many a times it happens that we join various platforms, we join various social media platforms, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, be it any other social media platform, but we do not go through the terms and conditions. Now, it is not possible for a child to look at all those things, but I would say the teachers and the parents who are watching this webinar, I want that these people should make these children aware what can be the consequences and the implications of their acts which they might think are innocuous. So now coming on to the Juvenile Justice Act, when we see the act, it has been made with the objective of child welfare. So punishing the child is not the objective of this act. The objective of this act is reformation of the child, rehabilitation of the child, and giving the child proper psychological support to understand the consequences of his act and accordingly make him a better person for the society. So when we speak of Juvenile Justice Act, there are provisions that say that NGOs and all these social organizations will have to maintain a place of safety, a reform house for these children. Various social organizations come forward to establish these houses to protect these children who might be in violation with the law. So the term that Juvenile Justice Act uses for a child is not an accused, but the act itself says a child in conflict with the law. So here itself we can see that the objective is not punishment, the objective is reformation. The objective is not to demean the child but to transform the child. So when we speak of offenses like these, Juvenile Justice Act does is it provides the remedy that you can release the child on bail, you can admonish him, you can scold him, and you can tell him that what you did was not right. Then you can make the child do community service, you can put the child through group counseling session, the child can be released on probation. As I said, the bail can be given. And in cases where the offenses are grave, you can put the child in a place of safety for a period not exceeding 3 years. So when we speak of Juvenile Justice Act, 3 years is the maximum period that is given as the time where you can place the child in an institution for his reformation. Also, You can ask the parents to pay fine for the acts of the child, as in order to deter the person. Now, we all know that Nirbhaya case was in a highlight for a long time, and there it was seen that the person who committed the most uh, grave act and most shameful act was a person who was a juvenile. He was about to turn 18 years within the period of 6 months, but he was punished under the Juvenile Justice Act and was sent to the place of safety for 3 years. Now, in such cases, what government has done is, after a lot of protest from everybody, they have amended the Juvenile Justice Act to treat the children from the age group of 16 to 18 years as who are doing any grave offense as a separate class, where these people, these children, will be treated differently. They will be tried as an adult. Now, when I say they will be tried as an adult, it does not mean that the provisions of Indian Penal Code or all these acts will apply to them. What will happen is that their offense will be identified from these basic substantial laws, and the term of punishment will be decided on the basis of the gravity of their offense. But what will happen is, this child will not be sent to jail. He will again be sent to a place of safety, where that child will be kept separately, and the final order will include directions as to the reformation of the child, and the psychology of the child will be taken into account, and accordingly the Juvenile Justice Board will decide what will happen to this child. Now, it may happen that the term which has been granted is, for example, let's say 7 years. 7 years of punishment is granted, and within that span of time the child turns 21 already. He is an adult. Again, Juvenile Justice Board will decide whether this child will go to the jail, or will that child be in the same place or not. It will depend on the conduct of the child, the good conduct, the bad conduct, everything will be taken into account. And as far as we are speaking of the Juvenile Justice Act, then the board that comprises herein, it comprises of a magistrate, and also it comprises of people from social and psychological backgrounds to, understand these children and understand the mental frame of these children. Coming on to the final bit of it, now what I'd like to tell you about is another, when we speak of Juvenile Justice Act, there is a case of Avinash Bajaj. He's the founder of one of the startups which is now a part of eBay. Now, what happened there was an adult, Avinash Bajaj. Then there was one more person from IIT, and there was a child. All these people, they were sharing obscene material with respect to women, and they were held, they were caught, and they were punished. Now, what happened was, the adults were punished under the Indian Penal Code, and the child was sent to the juvenile justice home for a period of 3 years, and he was made to undergo reformation. So, when I speak of these laws, the object with respect to the Juvenile Justice Act is, as I have said, reformation, but we should not lose sight of all these other laws that I have discussed, the Indian Penal Code, the IT Act. We should not lose sight of the fact that all these offenses are still punishable. It is just the age factor that is coming into play, and the law recognizes these acts as not acceptable. So it is important that you realize that even in case the act is committed by a child, the act is not acceptable. And also, as far as the social ostracization of a child is concerned, you need to realize the impact of such a case against the child, or if as a child you are listening to this webinar, you need to realize that what impact it might have on your life throughout. Your parents will be seen from a different point of view, you will be seen from a different point of view, your friends might ostracize you, they might stop talking to you. And when you are heading out to get a job, or you're applying for any small thing as simple as an Aadhaar card, you might be there to give a declaration that you do not have any case against you. Now that can have a real huge impact on you and the people around you. Now when I speak of law, there is one more point that I'd like to say is that the Juvenile Justice Act says that the identity of this child should not be disclosed. Now that is being done to protect the child from such a stigma. But at the same time, it does happen that even if the identity is not being revealed, people do get to know things, and everything spreads like fire in our nation. So we can't be uh, complacent of the fact that okay, he's a child and he will be probably just sent to a remand home and he'll be free soon. We need to keep in mind all the social, psychological and mental aspects of these things on you, and also on the accused, as well as the person who is facing all these situations at the hands of the perpetrator. Yeah, I'd like to I'd shift to Kaustubh. You can give in your valuable inputs.
Thank you, Ayushi. The detailed analysis is very, very helpful. I'm sure many of our participants and listeners may not really be very well versed with criminal law aspects of such issues. So this was a learning experience definitely for me, given my background, but I'm sure so was it for the other participants. Um, I also want to, share, of course, Ayushi touched upon some social aspects, some social implications of being involved in such acts, especially on the side of a perpetrator. When you are involved in doing something like this, one has to keep in mind, how things really work in India. I'll give you an example. Now, in the Delhi boys' locker room case, what do we think happened after the Delhi police discovered it? I agree that the parents and some NGO representatives were present in the police station when the questioning was happening. But we have to be aware that FIRs were registered. Now, when an FIR is registered against you, some of our older participants may be aware that it doesn't go away unless you get it quashed through a high court. And to get an FIR quashed is a whole process, which means the FIR stays with you. And then if criminal charges are framed and if a charge sheet is filed, then a case has been commenced against you. Now, in that case, any form you file, any official document, you apply for a passport, you apply for a foreign degree to a reputed university abroad, you will have to make this declaration. It's important to be aware of the implication. You may feel that, what's the maximum that's going to happen? I'm a juvenile, I'm 15 years old or 16 years old. The college also let me off with a warning, or maybe the college expelled me, but I've joined my school expelled me, but I've joined some other school. It's not really as simple as that. Your name is going to be in the police records, and maybe not now, maybe 5 years later, you're going to there's going to be some detrimental effect to your growth in some way. And that is separate from the social ostracization that Ayushi spoke of. This is something that hits at the root of our middle class values, to have somebody from our family being involved in something like this. And fortunate or unfortunate, those are the social controls within which we live in India. And it makes life difficult for the boy's parents, the boy's grandparents, people around him. So this is something everybody needs to be aware of. We cannot brush this issue under the carpet, because this will come back and bite all of us involved: the perpetrator himself, his friends, his family, his extended family, everybody. Now, keeping that in mind, and given that we had factored in broadly 1 hour for the session, I would like our panelists, and especially Suhasini and Smriti, to throw some light on some solutions and redressal mechanisms and suggestions which we may have, to ensure that we prevent such situations, we prevent such incidents, we instill awareness and sensitivity, and we try and build a more kind society and a more kind environment for our young female students who are growing up, especially in amongst those who there could be situations where a girl may be going through a lot with her own family. Now, in that case, if she is exposed to such behavior from her male peers, it can have a supremely detrimental effect on her mental, emotional, and physical growth. So if we could touch upon this, because the focus of the session really is to strike at the root of this problem. Of course, it's good to be aware of legal implications and the social impact, but the idea is to start reform at an early age. And for that, I will draw on the expertise of Smriti and Suhasini. So maybe I could ask Suhasini to go first, and then Smriti could share some more concluding thoughts before we open the house for questions from the participants.
Hi, thank you, Kaustubh. So, talking about solutions, talking about something that can be rectified in the society, and something that can be done uh, from our end to come to a solution for problems like this. One of the things is, since we all know that a kid uh, is spending majority of his or her time at schools, at educational institutions. One of the things that can be done is making sex education a part of a curriculum, right? Where we're not just talking about, what our organs are. We're not just talking about, that sex is something that can be, sex is something that should be done protectively. Talking about reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction, we should also be talking about the sensitivity of and the gravity of this issue, right? And we should also be, throwing some light on particular parts of the society where sexuality is still a taboo. And you know as I've already mentioned that since students spend a majority of the time at school, we should also try and investing into programs like sensitivity programs and gender sensitization programs, making the genders sensitive about social emotional learning, and giving them opportunity and giving them avenues where they can openly discuss about their problems, where openly they can talk about what are some of the things that they're going through, and they don't have to hide it within themselves and resort to their private groups and talk about it insanely and talk about it all in an obscene lewd manner. This is something that can be done. Also, since uh, since the child is born to the age he's 6 years old, he or she is 6 years old, उसका personality पूरी तरीके से develop हो जाता है. And all of a sudden, when a child hits 18 years ka age and 21 years ka age, and all of a sudden we expect him to behave like a gentleman, which is not going to happen. मतलब 12 साल का 18 साल का conditioning is not going to vanish away in a snap, right? So from a very early stage, when the child is growing up, when the child is grasping the things in the environment, we need to make sure that we are being good idols to them. We are not, portraying ourselves as gender biased parents and gender biased individuals. We need to curb this thing out of ourselves. And I know it is very difficult for a person who has been raised in a culture which is patriarchal to be completely gender neutral for their child, but at least we can try. At least we can be sensitive to, some of the things, like for example, consent. How many of the parents actually take consent from their parents, from the children, while changing their clothes, or allow them to go and talk with girls when they're very young, allow them to talk about their feelings, and allow them to, have open conversations? We just completely get a leeway by saying that ये तो बच्चा है, बड़े होके अपने आप समझ जाएगा. But we do not understand the point that the personality and, the attitudes, these are the things that are being ingrained from a very early age. By the age of 12, by the age of 10, a person already has some preconceptions and already has some notions about the world, other genders, and about themselves, and they're just interplaying with these attitudes and societal constructs right onwards from that point of time. And then it becomes really difficult to condition these young children and adolescents, and try to teach them this is the correct way, this is the incorrect way, because this is the time where they are themselves in an identity crisis. They're still trying to explore themselves, they're still trying to, observe the environment, they're still trying to figure out what their sexuality is, since it's very fluid. They're still trying to get over this taboo and, uh, just pacify this fascination. They're still trying to look for people and look for sources to get this fascination pacified, and they end up, a lot of times they end up stumping upon sources and stumping upon people where they get malfunctioning information, and they start perceiving the information, and they start perceiving the society in such a manner. So from a very 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 early age, if we can teach our kids to have healthy communications with their parents, this can be a very effective way. And one of the thing that I would also like to mention is, if we can inculcate, sensitivity programs and emotional learning programs, so that if both the genders are acknowledging the emotions and feelings of each other, and they have this perspective in their heads that the other person that I'm looking at is a human first, and a girl and a boy later. So they are kind to the other gender, the other counterpart, and they have this responsibility of decision making, that my words, my decisions are going to hurt the other person, maybe a girl or be it girl or boy, so these are some of the things that we as parents and educators can try and ponder upon inculcating in our system, because gender stereotypes, let's be very frank about it, has been ingrained in our society so much that it's completely impossible if we do not start acting upon it in very subtle way. Because these things that we're talking about, the conditioning that we're talking about, the kind of thought processes that we're talking about, are unconsciously being, inculcated into our heads through advertisements maybe, and through conversations, through eavesdropping maybe, through passive communication maybe, through observations, and kids learn by vicarious learning. So these are some of the points which the kid is not even aware of. I mean, even if the kid is being gender biased, even if the king is talking abusively, be it girl or be it, a boy, they're not consciously doing it, because it is something which has been ingrained in the perception so deeply that they aren't aware that what we're doing might end up hurting somebody else, right? And with this statement, I would like to hand over the stage to Smriti, if you have something valuable to chip in.
Yes, thank you so much, Suhasini. And it was a lovely discussion so far. The audience has been extremely active, and thank you everybody for your inputs, for all your and some of the questions as well. Um, I would like to highlight that this is such a broad topic, and throughout this past 1 hour, I was thinking of so many aspects of this problem. But again, I will try to, with a lot of effort, I will try to only touch upon 3 points, and these 3 points are something that we can do apart from our mainstream common sense that we as our roles of parents and teachers. All right. So the first thing is, and I'll highlight one example and what it is that we should do to take a step towards that particular point or that particular strategy. So the first thing that I already highlighted before is same rules. So in this movie Bahubali, you might have seen, it's a very famous movie. In the second part of that movie, Dev Sena, who is the lead actress of the movie, उनके यहाँ रिश्ता जाता है from बहुत ही बड़े महाराज का, भल्लाल देव का, and वो like she refuses and she sends the same things back. Again, I do recognize that she was a little, maybe a little too out there. I don't know, at least in the context. But what she did was कि उनके यहाँ रिश्ता आया था कि अच्छा ये हमारी तलवार है, इसके साथ ब्याह करके आ जाओ. उसने वही सेम तलवार वापस भेजी, बोली ये लो मेरी तलवार, इसके साथ ब्याह करके उनको भेज दो. Right. So if we think about all of these things, let's at least start with the small things when we try to define same rules, right? ठीक है, लड़की, I won't go into the depth of this, but you get the idea. This is one extreme example of how this gender bias is such an age-old thing. Now in today's world, this is hurting not just women but men too. Men cannot express their emotions. Can you even imagine how that would feel? They always need to be macho. Like, again, really, I have seen so many amazing men and women with such mature thought processes, and that's, I think, where all of us should be going. So my first point was that let's try to have same rules, and let's throw away the age-old rule book of लड़के ये नहीं कर सकते, लड़के भी कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, लड़कियां भी कुछ भी कर सकती हैं, as in terms of like their career. Like ladke, boys can be dancers. I've seen some amazing classical dancers. Girls can be Air Force pilots. They can be trek guides. They can be anything that they want, right? Coming back to my second point, I would like to highlight that the idea of personal space, we do not have that here. In foreign countries, it's not okay to hit your child. It's not okay to shout at your child, right? Otherwise, the child would, just call the police, and they will show up at your doorstep, and they will probably take away the child from you, and they will put them into child protective custody. Now, if as parents or if as teachers, we are violating the space of children, that is also not okay. Rather, at a young age, we need to tell them that, okay, you have a choice. You have your own space. You can voice it if you're not comfortable. Here, I would also like to highlight one simple example. And this is something that I realized when I started to read more about human rights and child rights. So again, focusing on how we are not just focusing on the girl-boy sexual harassment issue, but the general aspect of raising our children as well. So the example here is, so I have a wonderful, very cute, very smart 10-year-old cousin. And initially, when she was growing up, I wasn't around because I was in college. When I started to come back home and visit her, she was just so adorable that, as any normal person, you always, go for their cheeks. You give them a kiss, and this is all in a loving way. But she would always, sort of just push me away and, like not accept all of these things. Now, what I started doing was I realized that that is also not okay if she is telling me that she doesn't like it. And that is okay. We should accept that as parents and teachers. So what I started doing was I would ask her to just give me a kiss, whenever she feels like. Or I would just ask her to give me a hug whenever she feels like. Before I kiss her cheek, I would ask her, like, can I kiss you, or can I ek puppy le lu tumhari? Right? These things make a hell lot of a difference, and these children will not only be confident that okay, will not only know that this is my personal space, I have a right to what happens to myself, my own body. So, but this will also give them the confidence that if my parents or my family members are not violating my space, nobody else can violate my space. Again, this may be unrealistic, like if you may think about it for the first time, but really think about it and reflect on it, because this is not hard to do. The last point that I would like to highlight is, again, in the context of our discussion today of the boys' locker room incident and sexual harassment or eve teasing or catcalling and all of those aspects. The third point that I would like to highlight with utmost request and with utmost request and utmost urgency would be, let's speak up. I will just highlight a few things which are from my personal experiences, and back then I did not speak up. I will also highlight a few things that I now do and up to the most recent aspects of my experiences. So these are the instances when I did not speak up. As I already mentioned, when a friend of mine did not stand up for me, I personally did not stand up for myself, and I did not tell him off, or I did not tell him that this was not okay. I did not speak up when at a dinner somebody was leaning way into my menu and way into my space, and I was feeling uncomfortable. So to not spoil the mood, I did not speak up. I did not speak up when somebody, I was in a foreign country, this Jeju of mine touched me inappropriately in a cab, and I did not speak up. I'm feeling these things as I say these things right now. I did not speak up when a colleague touched me inappropriately. Now, when I look back, I really feel that, I am a part of the problem if I do not speak up. I finally have some of the courage to speak up. So I do try to speak up and raise my voice when something like this happens these days. One of my inspiration is a friend of mine who actually spoke up after a long time and, a lot of thinking about it. She spoke up because one of her friends who was married to somebody else had touched her inappropriately. The last time something happened to me on the Independence Day and Raksha Bandhan that was together, I was eve teased and I stood up for myself. I spoke up and I I was like, it was so hilarious. I was feeling so angry and fearful, but it was so hilarious. They were kids. I was in a car. They were in a on a two-wheeler, and they were harassing me. And it was just so hilarious. And I kept thinking to myself, कि ये eve teasing तुम्हारे लिए नया है, मेरे लिए नहीं. The last time that I was made to feel uncomfortable was at a puja where I had lost a loved one, and there was a puja for that person. And the person, the Brahmin who had come to do the puja, the Brahmin, he was looking at me, and I just stared back at him. What are you looking at? Can't you just, like, let me have this puja in peace? So these are the times when I did not speak up. These were the times when I spoke up. I really request all of you to speak up, to stand up for all of these things, not just women's issues, and not just human rights issues, but anything that is close to your heart. Speak up, and please speak up. Be as polite and as firm as you can be, but speak up in a way that you are heard. Please speak up early on when the situation or the mentality of the person is not so bad that there's no coming back from there. So with that, I did take a lot more time than I expected, but with that I would like to conclude what I had to say. Kaustubh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Suhasini and Smriti. And if I might say, inspirational for all of us listening, especially about your personal experiences. Before we move to the Q&A, which is next in the segment, I just had one concluding thought to share. Maybe, from my perspective, haven't really experienced it myself on either side, but, just wanted to share. There may be some young students here, some young boys who may be listening in, who may be wondering, if they are in a situation like this, what should they do? And maybe, we have some young females as well who may also have the same question. Just a concluding thought. I think the first and the most important thing that you can do is to confront whoever the person is, as long as you know the person. Of course, it's a random person on the street. It will be, it could bring you more harm if you confront the person. But if you have the person in your class, around you, you confront them. You confront them in front of your friends, so that, at least you take the first step in trying to address the issue. And if that doesn't work, given how Indian society is structured, there are many, many other structural controls, societal controls. You have the ability to report the matter to the boy's parents, and trust me, in most families, given how how our families are structured, that is a very effective method. If you involve the boy's parents into it, at least some steps are definitely taken to correct the boy's actions. So I understand there could be reluctance in going to the police or going to the authorities for every incident. I will not say small or big incident, because that is very subjective. But for every incident, you may not want to go, you may not find it feasible, you may also not want to to make a big deal about it, in which case you must at least inform the boy's parents. It's very important. You involve your teachers, you involve your principal, you make sure that there is if required, you make a written record out of it. So at least in the school's records, the school has it and the parents are aware of it. This is very, very effective when it comes to most families. And then, of course, if it doesn't get sorted out, then you've got legal recourses, some of which Ayushi had mentioned. So I want to conclude the discussion with that thought.
Kaustubh, I'd like to interject without taking much time. Since we are talking about the speaking up issue, and we are dealing with schools and teachers and their parents, what I'd like to say is that what every school can do is that maybe have an internal complaints committee that is established under the when we speak of the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act. such a committee exists in every organization. So we can do that at school level also. I think MAMS already has it. I had discussed it with Arpit earlier. In case there are teachers who are listening to this from the other schools as well, what I'd like to say is that you should always pitch in this idea before your school authorities, that it is important that we have such a committee, because what happens is that a child may not be comfortable to talk to his parents on these issues. Sometimes for children it's easier to speak to a stranger on these issues, or maybe somebody who they are acquainted with, and somebody who's a distant person in their life. So I think a committee at a school level will help such children in overcoming the barrier of speaking up. Yeah, over to you.
Now, my suggestion is that, I understand that some of the participants may have some strong views, may have some questions. So I am going to go through some of the texts that we have received, but I'm not sure how useful that would be, because some of them are comments. So can we have a mechanism where if somebody has a question, they could maybe raise their hands, and I think I get an option here to see who is raising their hand, and I can simply call out their name and they can be unmuted. Yeah, we have a lady called Jia Mehta who has raised her hand. Can I request the host to unmute Jia Mehta so that Jia can ask her question, and then I'll be happy to direct the question to one of the panelists or answer it myself.
Yeah, Jia is unmuted.
Good afternoon. I am Jia, and I want to raise a point that we are addressing this issue here. And in the beginning of this session, I received a text privately on this Zoom group chat only from some unknown person who has named himself or herself Carrie Minati, and he texted me, "Here, cutie." I want to raise this, that the issue which we are addressing here is exactly what they are doing. How ironic it is.
Yes, and that is the extent of the problem, Gia. Yeah. Again, I really don't know what to say.
No,
but
I'm glad. No, I'm glad she brought it up. I'm glad she brought it up. I think that is what Smriti and Suhasini was speaking of, and so was Ayushi. Calling out and speaking up and speaking out is the first step, and that is something that my request is that everybody who is even remotely affected should call out, and I don't think there's going to be anybody who can hold your hand in at least calling out. So that is something that, of course, all of us must do. Thank you, Jia, for that. I did see a raised hand from a gentleman called Mr. Rajiv Bhalla. I also see a few comments from Mr. Bhalla to share his views, and if he has any questions for us, we will be happy to address them to the extent we have the answer.
Yeah, Kaustubh, this discussion has gone in 2-3 different directions besides the boys' locker room. You were talking initially about the boys' locker room. Of course, I appreciate that Smriti went on to talk about sexual harassment, etc., etc. I fully acknowledge that, we are a patriarchal society. We have a gender bias. But at the same time, I would also like to say, that all the wrongdoings are mostly attributed to the boys. The fact is that when our adolescents are growing up, they have no guidance about their body, about their sexuality, or about the opposite gender. So what do? They are confused. They don't know who to go to. So what they do, they resort to internet, they talk to friends, they grab bits and pieces of information from here and there. Now, I also saw people said, internet was not there. I belong to the same school where you have studied, and I remember what I was as a youngster, the curiosity I had as a youngster. And I'm sure all of you as youngsters had curiosity about sexuality, about your body, about the opposite gender also. The question is, this is not a problem only for the boys. This is a problem for the girls as well. the girls also experience the similar things, only the manifestation is in a different style. They might not be having locker rooms, they might not be having chats, but they have that same kind of confusion. They have that same kind of problems. Ayushi spoke about the Juvenile Justice Act. I'd like to tell you about an incident in the city of Hardwar, where a young girl, a girl and a boy, both juveniles, a young girl literally emotionally blackmailed a boy who was again a juvenile to have physical relationship with her by saying, you know, if you don't do this, I'll kill myself, I'll harm myself, etc., etc. And what happened actually, that the boy and girl were both caught, and ultimately the girl denied any culpability. The boy was, put under POCSO, and he was made to be the perpetrator. Whereas actually the people in the Juvenile Justice Board, I talked to all three of them, they said, you know, we know that the girl is at fault. She is the one who forced this boy into it. But because of POCSO, etc., etc., you know, the culpability is in the case. I mean, the boy is the one who's going to get indicted. Of course, he's a juvenile, he'll get away with the 3-year term or whatever. But what I'm trying to highlight out here is that the problem is on both sides of the genders. It's not that the girls don't have this problem. Yeah. The manifestation might not be there in the form of a boys' locker room, but the curiosity, the ignorance of their sexuality, you know, the ignorance about the opposite gender, it exists on both sides. And for this, you know, we don't need to go into the laws and the rules and how to do it. We have to make a basic change in our educational setup. To expect it to happen in our homes is not going to happen so easily, because our society has its own mindset which is not going to change. I think this is where the schools can make a difference, where the education can make a difference, and these are the places where a big change will happen. Because in homes we are still orthodox. Most of our middle class does not talk about this. They'll, you know, ask you to go out of a room, the children to go out of a room if there's some, you know, explicit content or something which is embarrassing on TV. So let alone talk, it's not going to happen. You know, talking about sexual harassment, you know, that's a separate topic. And I like to say to Smriti and to others, most of it actually happens in your own homes. A survey done some years back, the biggest survey in the world which was done in India, showed that most of the sexual harassment happens in the homes, and more boys are sexually harassed than girls in their own homes. So I'd like to conclude with that, but I think the educational institutions have a big role to play in making a change. It's not going to happen easily in our homes because society can't change so easily. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Bhalla. I think that was very eloquently expressed. I think Mr. Bhalla has raised some valid points. He is, of course, he may be aware of several such incidents. I think we are all sharing our perspectives and trying to create awareness about the issue. I agree that the problem may exist on both sides. It was, of course, triggered by a particular incident which happened in Delhi. But I think the fact that the ladies or women may also have been involved in such situations does not take away the fact that, and we have to acknowledge that unfortunately, primarily, the women are at the receiving end of this issue, at least in India. I think we all know that. And of course, there are stray incidents of women also being involved in such incidents where the boys have been the victims, or we can call them survivors. And like you said, I think curiosity about sexuality is a very valid point. There is no doubt about that. That's been there for generations and is there even today. And that is one of the issues where there is not an adequate source for proper information, or a vent for exploring sexuality. Some folks tend to take recourse to these incidents that we have mentioned. I think it's important, whether or not, I mean, this may really be illegal, but it's important to understand why it's happening so that the larger issue can be addressed. Since I see a couple of reactions as well to the update that we had got on the Delhi boys locker room incident of a female being involved. posing as a boy and pretending as a boy to initiate a conversation on sexual violence, to draw out the boy that she was texting and to gauge his reaction. And I think the update on that was she has been let off by the police because there does not seem to be any legal provision under which she can really be charged. And that was my understanding based on the media reports I've read. And of course, that's an unnecessary distraction from this larger issue. Of course, I mean, it's not illegal, but it should not be used as a means to dilute the actual issue, which is of the existence of a boys' locker room itself. Now, on that thought, I just want to check who has raised their hand. I'm not able to see who else has raised their hand. I think we have time to take maybe 2 more questions, and then we will have to conclude this discussion and maybe take up the other points and other larger issues that the participants want to take up maybe at the next session. But could we take 1 or 2 more questions? If
Hello,
I can,
Kaustubh, can you hear me?
I can hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So Neeru Kulshrestha has raised her hand first.
Sure.
Shall I unmute?
So we could request Miss Neeru Kulshrestha to raise a question. After that, we can take only 1 more question.
Neeru, I would request you to please also, if it is okay, switch on your video so we can put you on spotlight. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Neeru. Hi.
Hello, sir. I'm sorry I cannot put the video on. Actually, I met with an accident and so it's all vanished. So I'm sorry about that.
I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you're getting better.
Oh, yes, I am. Actually, I raised my hand in concern to the previous question that was asked. When there was a ma'am and she talked about a gentleman who passed a comment to her while we were discussing about the same issue. So in that, what I wanted to say was it was really good that she at least had the guts to put forward the name that she could see. Like maybe it was a hoax name, but at least she pointed it out and she spoke it. Just as the resource persons were saying that we must have the guts to speak out about what's happening. So I really appreciated that. And secondly, what Mr. Bhalla said, that's the same issue I was thinking about, that at some point of time, even the girls are at fault. They are at great fault and they just escape everything under the cover for whatever reason. But then even that has to be taken care of. Though the session is very interactive and it's very informative, but that was one thing which I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, Kaustubh, can I just address to that point?
Yeah, sure, Suhasini, sure.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So first of all, thank you for such great insights. But I would, so I would just like to, speaking on the same parallel as Mr. Bhalla mentioned, we do agree that girls are not always the culprit. Boys are culprits as well. Sorry, boys not always the culprits, and they're victims as well. And now that many cases are coming up front, we are realizing that this is not an issue about women being sexually harassed, but this whole concept of not respecting other gender and taking this liberty and feeling like you can talk anything about anyone. But I would like to come to this point that where does this start from? Okay, so even in an education system, and as you rightly said, something has to be done in schooling, since we cannot expect the society to turn around overnight. Very rightly said. But as being an educationalist and also coming from the background of psychology, I believe that there's something that there's something that a father could rightly do, is telling their children and asking their children to be open about themselves first. Okay, जैसे हम लोग नॉर्मली भी सोसाइटी में देखते हैं, our genitals are called private parts. Okay, and we have different obscene sort of names for our breast and penises, people are not open to talk about them. ओके, लाइक रिप्रोडक्शन वाला चैप्टर जब शुरू होता है क्लासेस के अंदर, उससे 2 दिन पहले उसकी हवा शुरू हो जाती है. आई हैव पर्सनली सीन इन क्लासरूम्स दैट teachers come up and they elaborately discuss about a sexual reproduction, and as soon as sexual reproduction comes to the point and they're like, ये तुम next class में पढ़ लोगे, and it's like, this is not important, no question is going to come from this section, which is completely wrong. Once a person begins to accept themselves as a wholesome body, then maybe they can start appreciating themselves. And once you start appreciating yourself, you try and you very well try to discreet between what is wrong and what is right. वो जो discretion होता है वो तभी आता है when you respect yourself. If I know that this comment is not acceptable, then only I'm going to raise a voice. Until and unless it is not even an issue for me. किसी ने comment कर दिया, मैं सड़क पे जा रही थी, किसी ने छेड़ के चले गया या कुछ कर दिया, it's not an issue for me, क्योंकि रोजाना हो रहा है, ठीक है. It's only an issue if I feel like this should not be done, and that feeling, that internal sort of feeling is only going to come when I start respecting myself first, and that respect is going to be inculcated from the part of parents into the children, that these body parts are not your liability, this is you. Okay, you don't have to be ashamed of your breast size, you don't have to be ashamed of your penis size, you don't have to be ashamed of your body, you don't have to be ashamed of belonging to a particular gender, right? So this is something, because 6 साल तक में तो बच्चा स्कूल नहीं जा रहा होता है ना, 3 साल तक में तो बच्चा घर पर ही होता है, they roam around home naked, right? तो लड़कियों को बोला जाता है that they need to cover themselves, which is fine, but you also teach this to the boys that you also cover yourself, right? Which we don't teach in our society. We see men roaming around in their undergarments, and we see women being asked to dress up properly. This is where the things are wrong. We're not saying that girls cannot be the culprit, girls can only be oppressed ones. We're not saying that. We're just saying that if a particular gender is being treated in a certain way, let's for a second disregard the point that we're talking about genders right now. Let's just talk about that these toddlers are humans, and we need to condition them in the best effective way, right? So be it boys, be it girls, you need to adopt the best strategies to raise them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kastub, if I may also add something.
Sure. Ayushi, just before that, I wanted to say something, just to add one point there. I think my biggest takeaway from what Suhasini was saying is that we have to make efforts towards a normalization of a conversation around sexuality. That discussion is not a normal in our society, and I think that is also the point that Mr. Bhalla was echoing, and this has also been echoed by Smriti to some extent. And I believe that is something we all will agree on, including Arpit, who is an educationist. It's important to normalize that discussion in our homes, and particularly in our schools, in a formal manner, so that this doesn't remain a taboo. It doesn't remain something you speak of in hushed tones, because that lends a sense of shame whenever you speak about your sexuality, your private parts, your body. So that was my concluding thought, but happy to hear your views also, Ayushi, before we take a final question.
Yeah, so considering what Suhasini said and also Mr. Bhalla, what I'd like to say is that since he was speaking of everything being seen from the angle of a woman and the male aspect of it being left out, now when we speak of rape as an offense, it is a female-centric offense. There were protests all over the country that they wanted to introduce the term sexual assault in place of rape, because there was a need felt that men can also be subjected to sexual harassment. So now what happened was that all these feminists, they took over charge, and they made sure that part of sexual assault is not included, and rape being seen as an offense against the women only. So here what I'd like to say is that it is not an issue whether a male is being charged with an offense or a female is being charged with an offense. The whole idea is to uh, improve that mindset, the preconceived notions that we have, the things that have been ingrained in the society to us, that okay, only females are subjected to such a thing. When we speak of sexual harassment, then I am sure you must have seen that movie Etraz, where it was shown that a malicious prosecution took place against the lead actor. So what I'd like to say is that keeping in mind the false prosecution aspect of it, maliciously females do sometimes get into these things to accuse males. But in the end, that I would like to say is that we need to not lose the sight of the fact that everything is ingrained through the society in each and every one of us. So it is important that at the initial stage itself such an issue is addressed, and if in every house such an issue will be taken up neutrally towards both boys and girls, then I think then it will make an impact at the societal level of it. When we are speaking of all these legislations, legislations are being made by our people only. As we say, we are a democracy. So only the people elected by us are sitting there and making legislations for us. So it is important that each and every one of us is clear about this aspect, that both boys and girls are equal. Only physically they have been made differently, but mentally, morally, socially, everything is the same.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, fantastic point, Ayushi. I think it broadly put, we are moving, and we have to move more rapidly towards the concept of egalitarianism in every aspect of our lives. And hopefully with sessions such as these, we will be able to make rapid progress towards that ideal. Unfortunately, we will not be able to take any more questions except one question. I would request the host to allow a gentleman called Shivam to ask his question. He had raised his hand first. I know there are a number of other hands which have been raised, but unfortunately, due to paucity of time, it will not be possible. So may I request you to instead share your views over the chat, and share. We'll be happy to look at those questions and maybe respond over the chat itself. Even after the webinar has concluded, you could always let Arpit know, you could let Arjun know, who is the host, and the panelists will be happy to share our responses to those questions. Can I request Shivam now to pose his question, and then we can.
Thank you, sir, for allowing me to stand my issue. And I want to ask, first of all, what a great session by you all. You are really doing a great job. I really appreciate you all. So my question is, how can an individual stand against this issue?
So could you elaborate a little? What do you exactly mean when you say individuals stand against the issue? Do you mean that कोई किसी इंसान ने देखा कि ये हो रहा है और वो इसके बारे में क्या करे? आप ये कहना चाह रहे हैं? अगर आप ये कहना चाह रहे हैं तो थोड़ा और डिटेल बताइए कि क्या वो इंसान स्टूडेंट है, वो पेरेंट है, वो टीचर है, या वो विक्टिम है, क्योंकि उसके हिसाब से हम आपको बता पाएंगे कि सबसे ज्यादा अप्रोप्रिएट कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन क्या होगा ऐसे सिचुएशन में.
So, sir, I wanted to ask that what can be what can bring a change rapidly? What steps we can take immediately to bring a change rapidly?
Sure.
Since it might take a long time to bring a change.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I will request, maybe Suhasini or Smruti to take up that, since they are the domain experts here. If you could share some thoughts to address Shivam's point, it will benefit everybody.
Can I take this one, Kaustubh? Yeah. So, thank you so much for your question. So, first of all, I would like to say that there is, let's face it, there is no rapid change that we can bring about. This is a long battle, I would say, ranging from all the aspects that we've talked about right now. The panel has spoken about, and I can see, as you know, the participants are also talking about, you know, a lot of different aspects of this problem, ranging from uh, people not being mature enough about sexual encounters, to when we are talking about gender biases, gender pay gap, and there are just so many aspects of this problem or this issue, of gender bias, that it's not going away anytime soon. And I would like to back up here by saying that this thing is extremely deep rooted in all of us. Sexism is extremely deep rooted in all of us. So there is actually a question, a puzzle, if you may say, where so the puzzle goes this way. Two people, a father and a son, are in a car and they meet with an accident. So when the doctor comes to the side of the accident, the doctor says, oh my god, this is my son. So how is this possible? Now, for the lack of time, I would just like to highlight that the doctor is the mother of the child. But most people do not guess that it's the mother of the child. They go to ki grandfather hoga, the doctor is lying, the doctor is a man, and the son, the boy, has two fathers, but the doctor is not a woman. Right? So the fact is that these things are extremely deep rooted. One more beautiful example that, you know, it was very, very surprising for me was, people were made to read text where boys and girls, you know, their roles were interchanged. So they said something like, the CEO of the company came 10 minutes late. She then asked somebody to do something, etc. Now, when the person reads the word she over there instead of he, their brain lights up in such a way as if there was a grammatical error. So these things are so deep rooted. Now, what can we do about them? Of course, there is a lot of hope. There's a lot of people who are doing amazing things, girls and boys, men and women, despite of these things. So when you said, you know, like, what can you do? How can you speak up? Is when, so let's say there is, you can always try to be assertive. When I say assertive, it means you're trying to be firm about it, that you are, and of course, before that would be the aspect of understanding this issue a little better. So, of course, all of these aspects are very, very mature ways of thinking, that yes, it's not always the boys who are in the wrong. And understanding what feminism means, understanding what rights of people, human rights mean, and then trying to standing up for these things in simple ways, saying no when things are not okay, not correct. Standing up for anybody, your female or male friends, when they are being bullied in any way, specifically if they are bullied in a sexual way, which is actually sexual harassment. So standing up for them, supporting them in ways that they know that you support them. And yeah, the list actually goes on up to that if somebody sort of does these things, as Ayushi already rightly mentioned, you can actually file a complaint. You can actually file a complaint with the police. So that is the extent to which you can go to voice your concerns and to bring about a change. But that a change will be slow. So yeah, I have accepted that, and that is my personal opinion.
The change will be slow, but the fight must go on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add
Yeah.
a few points. Shivam, could you please unmute yourself or maybe drop a text in the chat box if you're a student or you? I think you're a student as far as I could see your picture. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Shivam, since Smriti rightly said, evolution is not very drastic, they are a process. One thing or a few things that you as a student could do is, uh, so being a part of the society, staying at home, you might see a lot of incidents happening around you where you have been a silent spectator so far. You must have been a part of groups, WhatsApp group or Instagram group, so you must be following some pages on Instagram. Or while you're having a gathering at home, you might come across situations where people are talking things not obscene but gender biased, okay, in which respect is not being shown towards either of the gender. Maybe instead of being a silent spectator, if you start opinionating, if you start presenting your views, I know it is going to be difficult since we have this general perception कि बच्चों को क्या पता होता है, which is wrong, which needs discussion altogether. But yeah, start speaking for yourself, as was mentioned by Smriti earlier as well. Second thing, for all the parents, principals, and teachers in the school, give platform to students to talk about it. Instead of shushing them, instead of telling them to tolerate a little more or be accepting that the society is not going to turn around overnight. These are some of the things that we can do, and we can start doing, start forming opinions, start presenting them, okay, as students, not being silent spectators to these sort of incidents, and start being intolerant toward these incidents. If you see something of this sort of things happening, and if you see your peers talking about these things, and if you see a woman coming up to you, approaching you for solutions, you know start being accepting for these facts. This is how seldom gradually, I'm sorry, gradually these actions and these sort of manifestations may eventually bring out some change in the society.
No, that's right. Of course. I completely echo those views, Vasin. I think we've shared our thoughts on this. For now, we will have to unfortunately conclude the session now. We have exceeded our allotted time considerably. But before I concluded the session and thanked everyone, I would like to invite Khyati from Ma Anandmay Memorial School to share her thoughts on it's an initiative which has been taken by the school. So if I can invite Khyati to maybe talk about it for a bit before we conclude the session.
Hello everyone, a very good afternoon to one and all. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Khyati, you're audible. I request you to please switch on your video so we can put you in spotlight. Thank you.
No, I have to share the screen because I need to show some creatives. So I think that video won't be a better option.
Okay.
I'm directly sharing the, So first of all, it was an amazing session. I would really thank all the speakers for giving such wonderful insights and the audience for being really active. Also, as a part of MAMS, in the COVID times, we have very well proved that we do not need classrooms to impart education. So with this initiative, we have also seen that many of our students are missing their summer camps, and that is why we have come up with a new initiative. And so here is a good news I would like to share with you all. Just a second, please.
Khyati, I'm not able to see the creative that you've prepared. Could you share that?
Yeah. I'm just sharing it. A second. Okay, so can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah. So finally, we are here with, because summer camp cannot be operated offline this year, but we cannot stop having our fun and learning new things as we always do in every summer. So we have a new initiative that is Stay Home and Make Your Summer Fun and Productive with our experts. There's an online summer which is starting from 1st June for 15 days. And we moms are hosting it with many new features. That is a DIY approach. We have e-certificates for our students. We have a format which has been tried and tested. We have a relevant curriculum and the best facilitators from different fields and a personalized learning and equally monitoring platform. Other than that, we have two different, we have separate summer camp designed for juniors and as well as seniors. So for juniors, we have different activities like art and craft, mental mathematics, English communication, phonetics, and etc., which is going to be held 1 hour every day for next 15 days from 1st June. And then we have another one for a senior group, which is from 9 to 15 years, and we have very amazing activities this time. We have an online cricket coaching, we have a mobile app development program, we have a face painting program. In the STEAM activities, which has always been a unique feature of moms, we have 3D modeling, we have a project-based learning, and a game development. So because in the COVID times, mom has switched over to an online mode of education, we did certain surveys to find out that how are our receivers responding to the education, the system we are adopting right now. So we have certain surveys which is done and which will be shared on the Facebook later. So we have 321 responses, as you can all see, and we have seen that a lot of students, 70% of the students are being benefited from such online education system. And we also asked parents that how happy are their kids about the online classes. They were really happy. 87.5% of the students are really happy attending it. Other than that, are the parents as well as the students satisfied with the current curriculum? Yes, 62.9%. And because there is always a scope of improvement, we are improving by the feedbacks. So I would really request you, everyone, all the parents in the show, all the teachers on the show, on the webinar, please everyone just make this, inform all the students around you that we have a summer camp and we are not missing out with all our summer activities this year also, but just a slight twist with an online platform. And other than that, I have a small request with you all, that as you see that in the COVID times, moms have not paused anything. They have not stopped to provide the students with the best possible education. It has neither paused the education nor the salaries of the ones who are providing education. But for sure, we see that the incoming fees has paused. So as the situation is unpredictable, it makes all the more limited to generate funds. As a responsible citizens, I would really request, as a part of moms, I would really request you all to understand the value of education and consider it as an investment rather than a waste of money. And also, I really want you people to understand the dreams and aspirations of a student, which would be held to a pause if we do not get sufficient support. Please contribute, and this link, the details will be shared over our Facebook page and other platforms, so that you all can support and contribute us, so that we are not forced to pause it in any manner. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I really hope that you all will be a great audience in the online summer camp too, and I'll be seeing many more kids in the online summer camp, and a contribution which really matters a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Khyati. Thanks. Now, just to conclude, I'd like to thank the management at MAMS and Arpit in particular for taking this initiative, for reaching out to each of us panelists, for organizing this, for giving us a platform to participate on this issue and to speak on this issue, which is close to all of our hearts. And I've said this earlier, and I'm just reiterating it. As we all try to build a more kind society, a more empathetic society around us, I'd like to thank once again Smruti, Suhasini, and Ayushi for taking time out to participate in this webinar. Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to interacting with you guys, maybe at some other session in the future, either on a similar topic or on a different topic. We wish you all the best. Please stay home, keep safe, and take care.